Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. I'm always grateful for that. I'm really looking forward to hosting Stephen Jennings of Tattoo City, Rendeavor, previously of Renaissance and Credit Suisse First Boston, Mindspeak on Tuesday the 9th of June. It will be a very interesting and forthright Mindspeak, I suspect. Of course, Tattoo City has been caught in the wars of late, and Business Daily is leading with a story today. Former Central Bank of Kenya boss used associates to procure Tattoo City land. Former Central Bank of Kenya Governor Nahashon Nyaga has admitted to using his relatives and members of his church to procure land from Tattoo City, a move that has caused a standoff between the 240 billion shilling project's foreign and local partners. Mr. Nyaga says in court papers that he arranged for his friends and relatives to buy land from Tattoo City, even as he denied using them as part of a large-scale land fraud scheme. He was responding to Tattoo City's foreign investors' claims, that he used friends and relatives to defraud Coffinav, the company that holds Tattoo City land. Through Coffinav, the foreign directors claimed in suit papers that Mr. Nyaga had registered his relatives and members of his church as directors in two of the Tattoo City affiliated companies as part of a scheme to transfer land valued at 9 billion shillings to himself. You could not make it up. Mr. Nyaga now says he only introduced his friends and relatives to Anjawala and Khanna, the lawyers who were then handling some of the land transactions. Well, we're going to hear all about that, and it's going to make an interesting story. Kenyan Wall Street tweeted, finally on Mindspeak, the Taranaki boy. I don't know what that means, Mr. Stephen Jennings, but it's a nice photograph. And I tweeted when I saw Stephen last. Next up on Mindspeak, Stephen Jennings. I'll put up the photograph I took. I worked with Stephen at Credit Suisse First Boston in London before he took off to Moscow to set up his investment bank. Then, in 1998, I was one of his biggest financiers, in point of fact, of his trading book. I had a loan out to him of about $300 million. The day before it all blew up in Russia, much to their credit, they called me and asked me to unwind the financing. And in 1998, I visited Moscow, and he threw this fabulous party on the river, which was spectacular. And now we've caught up again. So indeed, looking forward to this Mindspeak. Macro thoughts, let me start with Eric Scott Hanseda. Beautiful image of major currency pairs today. Of course, it was yesterday. And you can see quite dramatic moves which have pushed on the euro in particular above 113 now, making huge headway. Home thoughts, I went back because of football to Zane Freestyle, Sunrise Beach Training Session, Mombasa, the beautiful game indeed. And I also like this photograph, which was tweeted from Al-Bashir, and it's of a newborn baby plains zebra. Political reflections, the FBI extends FIFA scrutiny to World Cup hosts bids of Russia and Qatar. The US law enforcement official who spoke to Reuters on condition of anonymity said the review of the bids would be part of a probe that goes beyond the indictments. Among issues the FBI is examining is the stewardship of FIFA by longtime President Sepp Blatter, who unexpectedly announced on Tuesday he was resigning shortly before it emerged that he too was under investigation by US law enforcement. On Wednesday, the partially blacked out transcript of the November 2013 guilty plea of Chuck Blazer, US citizen and FIFA Executive Committee member, from 1997 to 2013 showed that Blazer and others in FIFA agreed to accept bribes in bidding for the 1998 and 2010 World Cups and other tournaments. Conclusions, you have to make your own, please, but I've already made mine. I think it was a den of corruption, an empire of sleaze, and I think Sepp Blatter sat atop of it. Eric Scott Heinzeder again, because he does do wonderful tweets. Oh look, the FIFA priests have cast their vote for a new pope, he said. Carter is now the US point man for Asia. There should be no mistake about this. The United States will fly, sail and operate wherever international law allows, as we do all around the world, said Carter, who had ordered the military to develop options for more assertive US demonstrations of its right to transit the region. Carter backed up his statement by ordering a flyby of an offending Chinese island in the South China Sea by a US surveillance aircraft with CNN on board. The Chinese Navy communications guy futilely radioed, "This is the Chinese Navy. This is the Chinese Navy. Please go away," to avoid misunderstanding, which was apparently sufficiently ominous, in the words of CNN correspondent Jim Scuter, to materialize the red menace. My friend Hervé, who visited from Kinshasa over the weekend and is a great friend, and of course I always tell everybody the story of how he saved his life in the Haiti earthquake by diving under his table, thinks it's all bombast, and this pivot to Asia is largely a paper tiger. I remain of the view that the US is seeking to deliver more than a bloody nose. Mohammed Omar tweeted, "My name is Gaza and I am being bombed. Can anybody hear me?" Currency markets, the euro, when I walked in, was below 112.50, now at 113.36. Massive surge, that must have knocked back the dollar index. Japanese yen, I came in at 124.35, we're now at 124.03, but that's more a story around the strength of the euro. Swissy 0.9297 pound, 154.03 Aussies, 0.7741, India rupee 64.155, South Korean won 1113.88, Brazilian real 313.56, Egyptian pound 762.93, and the rand has had a big move, last trading 1237.29. Dollar index, I'll put up a 1 month chart, and everything hinges now on tomorrow's report. Euro dollar, what a mega rally, and it's been a phenomenal rebound of late. I'll put up a 1 month chart so you can see what I'm talking about. 114.50 is probably the target right now. And the reason the euro rallied so sharply is seen in these four images that I picked up off Twitter. Eric Hanseda, little spill in Buxel, and I'll show you that image. Domenico De Giorgio, if you're struggling to make sense of why the euro is this high, look at the 10-year German Bund yield chart, and there's been extreme sensitivity between German Bund yields and the euro. This morning, German 10-year Bund sell-off, yield up to 0.88%, highest since October 2014, and then the 30-year Bund yield closes above 1.5%, and that also is supporting the euro. Dollar yen, we're at 124, the figure exactly, and I think we'll see a pretty dramatic break higher tomorrow in particular. Commodity markets, there is consensus among Gulf OPEC countries and others to keep the ceiling unchanged, and that's an important point to bear in mind. OPEC Secretary General Abdullah Al-Badri said on Wednesday that it would be likely to be a brief meeting. This is referencing the OPEC meeting. Everything is clear, he said. And I concluded by saying, if you're rubbing noses into the dirt, which is what OPEC is trying to do, you do not let up now. Crude oil, I'll put up a 6 month chart. I think it's going to go down real big, actually. And Bloomberg had a headline, "What's OPEC going to do with Iran's 1,000,000 barrels a day?" Good question, and one that needs answering. Just when it looked like OPEC was winning the war with US shale oil drillers, a new front is opening up within its own ranks. OPEC, a summit on June 5th to determine the group's output, will come 3 weeks before a deadline for a deal on Iran's nuclear weapons. The government in Tehran says it can add almost 1,000,000 barrels a day to daily production within 6 months of sanctions being lifted. But the other point is they've got a ton of oil sitting in the open sea. And on that note, I'll put up a photograph of an oil tanker seen off the port of Bandar Abbas, southern Iran. Gold, last trading 1182.88. I think we're due a major breakdown in gold, I'm afraid. And I'm looking for it to break down pretty big. Coming to sub-Saharan Africa, what Spain tells us about the future of AFRICOM. US beefs up military presence in southern Spain. The US's decision to beef up its military presence in southern Spain indicates that a new strategy towards Africa is well underway. Washington just clinched a deal with Madrid that will see it boosting its military footprint in the south of the country. According to the agreement, up to 2,200 Marines and possibly 40 military aircraft will be deployed within striking distance of all of West Africa. And this massive amount of firepower proves that the US is preparing its forces for engagement all across the continent in the years to come. Its deployment along the African periphery in Spain complements the existing presence it has in Italy and Djibouti, to say nothing of its mobile naval capabilities, and this arrangement may actually be the most efficient of AFRICOM's speculated formations. In the short term, it's predicted that the US's latest moves are in anticipation of an inevitable leadership transition that may soon take place in Algeria, while the constant long-term interest is in controlling the transit of significant non-Russian gas supplies to the EU, and, of course, repelling China. And my view is that the US has a hard power advantage with which it can tilt the African pitch, and it's going to use it. Omar Al-Bashir, as I said yesterday, struck a conciliatory tone as he returned to power. I conclude again, no one is listening. Omar Al-Bashir was among friends, says the Independent. His appreciative audience included like-minded leaders, Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt, men who tolerate no dissent. Interesting piece in the Mail and Guardian. Trouble in the Great Lakes, Burundi, like South Sudan, on the brink of economic collapse. Protesters are seeking to turn Bujumbura into a dead city. Fumed, a senior official in the ruling CNDD-FDD party. The impact of the demonstrations on the economy is real. It is a terrible weapon. April tax revenues collected mainly in Bujumbura dropped 18%. The shortfall was worse in May, which saw the closing of shops and banks, the blocking of roads into key areas of the capital, and the fearful exodus of tens of thousands of Burundians to neighboring countries. And it takes me back to my favorite writer, Paul Virilio, who says the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, a machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. And today in Africa you need a deep and intuitive understanding of the street in order to survive in power, in my opinion. France 24 said Burundi has postponed its parliamentary elections amid the political crisis, and posted a photograph which I'll post as well. And I'll show you my copy of Speed and Politics by Paul Virilio, which I bought from the inestimable Chan, who operates out of the Yaya Center. I'll take you back to a quote, Barrow, "They cannot imprison hope. they will fail. Youth will continue to mobilize, and I think that's a very good point. Mobile phone access in Africa is set to double in the next 5 years. Reuters, it's a real revolution. 80% of sub-Saharan Africa's 800 million people should have access to mobile telephones by the end of the decade, double the current rate. Although government help is needed to reach far-flung areas, industry body group GSMA said on Wednesday. The growth of mobile data, an even more powerful economic tool than simple voice services, also hinges on authorities allocating sufficient spectrum, said Mortimer Hope, the Africa director of GSMA. We expect data to keep growing dramatically, and to facilitate that you need more spectrum to handle that growth. To unleash the full potential of mobile internet services, he said government should also consider cutting taxes on web-enabled handsets to make them more affordable to consumers on the poorest continent. It's very early days for data, but we would like it to be everywhere you have voice. The extra physical infrastructure development is not as big as you would think. European and US companies, executives could face fines and even jail time for trading with Congolese logging companies accused of systematic illegal logging and social and environmental abuses. This is Global Witness, and it's a pretty hard-hitting report, well worth having a look at. Tanzania apparently lost 60% of its elephants in 5 years, the census reveals. Put up a photograph of elephants crossing the Awase-Nyira River in the Samburu that I took 1,324 days ago. Elephants on the 1st of September 2013 in the Amboseli. What a fantastic view it is of the backside of an elephant, and you can see the sheer size of the animal we're talking about. And like ballet dancers, so gentle. I mean, I remember listening out of the window, and you couldn't hear, you could have heard a pin drop. Interestingly, Tanzania blames migration for huge drop in elephant numbers. Well, if you believe that, you're going to believe anything. South African all shares up 4.179% this year, but has retreated 6.0484% since closing at a record 55,188 on the 24th of April. Dollar rand, we're now at 12.3768. Egyptian pound 763, where it's been for a while. Egyptian stock market is negative 0.2352% so far this year, but has had a good rally since announcing that the capital gains tax proposal was to be pushed forward. And then Amnesty has got a very hard-hitting report, Blood on Their Hands, it's called. More than 1,200 people were extrajudicially executed during the raids. This is talking about countering the Boko Haram. At least 7,000 people have died in custody after being tortured or of thirst, starvation, severe overcrowding that led to the spread of diseases, and the use of fumigation chemicals in unventilated cells. The true numbers are impossible to confirm, but are likely to be much higher, says Amnesty. The Ghana Stock Exchange is up 4.599% year to date and is at 10.5-month highs, but Ghana has had to send its military to the capital as the roads have flooded and power is cut. The Ghanaian military and police began rescuing people in the capital after floods cut access to major roads and knocked power out in much of the coastal city. Most of Accra, a city of about 4 million people, was dark Wednesday night after 6 hours of rain, the Ministry of Communication said in an email statement. The state power company had to make an emergency cut after damage to the Achimota station, according to the statement. Many suburbs of Accra and surrounding parts have been heavily affected, leading to heavy restriction of movement of people, according to the statement. The general public is kindly advised to avoid fast-moving rainwater and areas they know have big drains. Stay on higher ground where necessary to prevent loss of life. Lady Senna tweeted water is reaching to the level of car windows, entering cars which are stuck in traffic or cannot move. I'll put up that photograph. And then scores of people who took refuge at a fuel station in Accra from the rain during a heavy downpour have died. There was an explosion there. Coming to Kenya, Equity Bank's Equitel targets 100 million African customers. Equity Bank, which has started a new mobile payment and banking service called Equitel, is seeking 100 million customers in Africa within 10 years, and the first 5 million by the end of 2015. We already have 800,000 accounts, and I'm optimistic we'll have 5 million SIM cards issued by year end. This is James Mwangi. For Africa, this is a bold step to converge financial services and telecoms along with payment services through American Express and MasterCard for tap and go, he said. Equitel is a joint project between Nairobi-based Equity Bank and Airtel Kenya. Equity Bank last year began operating the mobile phone banking and payment service. It competes with Safaricom. M-Pesa, which allows users to send money by mobile phone, generating 26.6 billion shillings, which is $275 million of revenue for Safaricom in 2014. As capital needs grow along with Equity Bank's operations expansion, it may consider an initial public offering in Johannesburg or London, Mwangi has said. He's moving with some dispatch, isn't he? Equity Group is down 4.5% year to date, but I expect it to start improving from here on in. Kenya shilling last trading at 96.85, and it's had a very strong rally since the central bank intervened, just above 99 the figure. Nairobi all-share is up 0.822% year-to-date, eased 0.1% yesterday, and missed posting a 4-session winning streak by a whisker. NSE 20 is down 6.298% in 2015, and just 4 points above its 2015 low, reached on the 29th of May. Tuskys of Kenya plans to open stores in Ethiopia. We have now set 2016 as the appropriate time to open stores in Ethiopia, said the CEO Dan Githua. What we're going to do there is partner with a local entrepreneur. In our 5-year plan, we're also considering either to go to the Congo or to Tanzania. Interesting. Kenya Airways has hired an American turnaround consultancy, Seabury. Seabury has been picked to evaluate KQ's sales, ticketing and network planning functions and benchmark them with best practices in the airline industry. Well, I think everyone knows what the problem is. You don't need an external advisor to tell you. There's a link for Kenya Airways' share price if you care to inspect it. The shilling has remembered its previous Teflon status and was last trading at 96 and change. Last week, the shilling printed 99 plus before a lethal intervention by the central bank burned the shilling shorts. Appointment of a substantive head of the central bank will also support. NSE 20 actually reversed course yesterday. All share missed closing on a 4-session winning streak by a very, very small margin. Safaricom, which had rebounded 8.91% since the 27th of May, paused for breath and retraced 0.6%. Nation Media bounced an anemic 0.512%. It slumped 25.47% year to date, which is pretty enormous. KCB surged 1.709% to close at 58.50 and was in fact trading at session highs of 59.50, plus 3.48% at the finale. Equity Group was the most actively traded share, but closed unchanged at 47.75. Diamond Trust rallied 1.777% on heavy volume. EABL was a big mover, up 3.28% to close at 314. The captain there, Charles Ireland, has quietly reset the navigation path, and buyers have yet to bake that into the price. It's rallied 4.66% over the last 2 trading sessions. And with that, I shall leave it. And thank you very much for stopping by. I am always grateful.